Hello, thank you for tuning in and watching our virtual presentation of our research project, It's Complicated, the Status of Gatekeeping Processes in Complex Situations. My name is Olivia McKain, and I am a senior in the class of 2020, getting my Bachelor's of Social Work.
And my name is Katelyn Amstutz, and I'm also a senior at Meredith College, obtaining my Bachelor's in Social Work.
And we did this research partnered with two of our professors, Amanda Jones, who is a professor in the social work department and the program director, along with Dr. Joy Learman, who is an associate professor in the social work department.
So we wanted to share this quote with you found by our professor, Amanda Jones, because we believe that it kind of gives a snapshot of what gatekeeping is and what it means to the profession of social work. Thus, the primary intent of gatekeeping is to protect the public at large, who are left unsuspecting and vulnerable when an unsuitable student is credentialed and sanctioned to practice. Consequently, gatekeeping, at least in part, involves boundary maintenance. Sound gatekeeping policies protect the space between the primacy of public need and trust and the essential nature of professional responsibility. If we, as faculty members, misunderstand our role as gatekeepers and permit an unsuitable candidate for a degree to obtain that degree, we have abdicated our responsibility to society by minimizing the potential harm that could result. Gibbs and Blakely, 2000.
So when looking at what gatekeeping is and kind of establishing what that means for social work educators, we wanted to see what kind of standards and guidelines were already provided. So this is from the CSWE, which is the Council on Social Work Education Curriculum Policy Statement. CSWE mandates and regulates all social work education. And so in these two sections, they basically say that social work programs will have policies and procedures regarding evaluating students' academic and professional performance, as well as procedures for terminating a student's enrollment in social work programs for reasons of academic or professional performance. So the programs have to describe how it does these different things, and these programs have to be available to students to look at as well. So then there's the NASW Code of Ethics. NASW stands for National Association of Social Workers. So the social work profession operates and follows a code of ethics, which describe different guidelines for competent practice. And so in the sections regarding educating and training, it kind of gives the call for gatekeeping, where it says social workers who function as educators or field instructors for students should evaluate their performance in a manner that is fair and respectful. And they also have the responsibility for evaluating the performance of others to fulfill that responsibility in a fair and considerate manner. Then social workers are called in section 5 of the Code of Ethics, talking about integrity of the profession, to work towards maintaining and promoting high standards of practice. So these are really where we find the call for gatekeeping in social work education. But as you can see, there's not explicit directions of what that looks like, or really an explicit definition of what that means. Then finally, the NASW, ASWB, CSWE, and CSWA standards on technology. What we found is that a lot of issues with gatekeeping surround technology, and technology has kind of created even more ambiguity as we enter into this just world where technology is a greater part of our daily lives. And so these standards are created to look at how people should go about utilizing them. And so it says really that social work educators who use technology should take precautions to ensure the maintenance of appropriate student-educator boundaries.
So for our recorded part of our study, we developed and created a Qualtrics survey that was sent to BSW programs around the United States by Amanda Jones, our program director at Meredith College. So the first thing we looked at was what position our participants were holding at their colleges and universities. So we had 113 participants at the time we pulled this data. And as you can see, our majority of our participants were program directors, 63.72%, and 19.47% were department chairs, and 8.85% were professors. Next, we looked at what information was included in the student handbook for the social work department at the programs our participants were working in. And as you can see, it's kind of scattered of what was included, and participants could select multiple of these. So our top three were program expectations for students. 23.24% had this in their handbook, and reasons for termination, 21.78% had this in their handbook, and 21.37% had an appeals process.
So then we wanted to look at how important did people think that gatekeeping was. So what we found was that 54.4% of respondents said that gatekeeping was extremely important, and 38.9% found it important. So a high majority of the participants considered this gatekeeping to be important. What was interesting in comparison to those findings is that only 50% of participants felt confident and only 22% felt very confident. So it was a staggering difference between the amount of people that felt that gatekeeping was at least important, which was greater than 90% of participants, when only 22% of participants felt very confident in their abilities to fulfill this important role. So we also wanted to look at the reasons that programs typically have for terminating students from the social work programs at their respective schools. So the biggest ones were academic performance, mental health that was negatively affecting their performance, and substance use that was affecting their performance. But there was a pretty close range of the other options as well, which would be lack of self-awareness and a fit with values and ethics of the profession. So then we also wanted to look at when gatekeeping occurs, when contact with students occurs, when there is a academic or professionalism related problem, what are the consequences that typically happen? And the largest number was a meeting with the student, and then followed by students giving a behavioral contract of some sort, and then also students being placed on probation and then terminated from the program.
So the next three charts that we're going to be looking at is a timeline that we were curious about. So when is gatekeeping best for the student? When is it best for the program? And then when gatekeeping is actually happening. So here, this is when we asked participants when they thought the best timing for the student was for gatekeeping to occur. So 41.1% said at the application of the program, 32.1% said during practice level social work, and 12.5% said at declaration of social work major. And then the other two following were at completion of practice level coursework and during field placement. Then when looking at the best timing for the program for gatekeeping to occur, 42% said at application of the program, 25.9% said during practice level coursework, 20.5% said at declaration of social work major, and then the others were at completion of practice level coursework and at completion of field placement, and then during field placement. Then we were interested to see when gatekeeping is happening within these programs. And so 31.6% said at application of the program, 30.7% said during field placement, and 26.3% said during practice level coursework, and then 7% at time of field placement, and 4% said at completion of practice level coursework. What's really interesting about the difference in these charts is that for the student's best timeline and program's best timeline, gatekeeping is occurring at the application of the program and at practice level coursework, but when it's actually happening is at the application of the program and during field placement. So we found this to be very interesting because field placement is in the last semester, and that's when programs don't feel that it's best for student or their program. So it's really interesting that this is happening during that time.
So that was the quantitative part of our study. And the next, we're going to go over the qualitative results that we have that we asked participants to give their definition of what gatekeeping was. So after coding the results and dividing it up, we found 4 common themes, which were demonstrating competence and meeting standards, fulfilling ethical responsibility as social work educators, identifying key steps in the process, and balancing inclusivity. So to look more in depth at each of these, for the demonstrating competence theme, we saw kind of the trend of professors making sure that students are capable of mastering social work competencies, making sure that they can meet the standards set by CSWE. Also, assessing their fit for the profession. Do they line up with the values and ethics set by NASW and CSWE? Also, making sure that students meet the academic, behavioral, and ethical standards set by both larger bodies and the program themselves, and assessing readiness for the profession. Because social work is a professional degree, it's expected that when you graduate after meeting these competencies that you are ready to work in the social work field having met these competencies. And so you really have to see if they're ready to do those things. Then the second theme was fulfilling ethical responsibility. So this looked at preventing harm to future clients. Again, this is a professional degree. So are we making sure that the students that are leaving programs that this is preventing harm to future clients, and protecting the integrity of the social work profession. And then while also screening and vetting students and ensuring professionalism in work.
Next, identifying key steps. So ensuring students are agreeing to abide by the Code of Ethics, engaging in ongoing process of assessment, developing competitive application processes, assessing academic coursework, conducting background checks, assessing on case-by-case basis, and utilizing an admissions panel and committee. Next, also balancing inclusivity, and this has we found like the themes had a positive and negative connotation to it. So the positive connotation to it would be helping students find the best major for them, supporting students facing challenges, balancing readiness with inclusivity. And our negative connotation themes that we found is screening out, not utilizing strengths-based perspective, engaging in paternalistic behavior, and preventing students from learning and growing. Finally, we would like to share this quote with you all. If we stay strictly in our role as gatekeepers and thus negate our interpersonal connection to the student and our commitment to the student's development, it becomes easy to dismiss this emotional impact our actions have on individual students and to deny our role in facilitating a student's success. On the other hand, if we divorce ourselves from our commitment to society and focus primarily on our interpersonal connection to students, we may become negligent in our function as gatekeepers. We must achieve a balance, and we must be ever mindful of it as we carry out our charge. Gibbs and Blakely, 2000. And here's our references. If you all need to contact us in any ways, you can contact either of our faculty mentors at arjones@meredith.edu or jlearman@meredith.edu, or our emails are the 2 following emails. And also, if you are in the profession of working in a BSW program in the United States and would like to take the survey, this is a QR code that you can still do that at, and it would help us for future research. Thank you.